Hi, Nikki Duffy here, choosingfortoday.com, International Women's Day 2018. And what if you could celebrate every day? Celebrate your differences, celebrate what's great about being a woman, celebrate what's great about being a man, celebrate whoever you are, being you in a way that works for you. What if that was okay? I remember as a kid growing up in the 70s, a very young child, of course, in the 70s. Just in the, it's still, when the country was still very much in women's lib and, what women should do and what women shouldn't do. And I remember my mum was a stay-at-home mum. And a lot of the early 70s mums were the pioneers in working and having a career as well as being a mother. And it was the whole a woman should have it all, a woman can have it all, and they should. And the way it was working out in the women I saw, the other mothers that I saw, the parents of other children in my primary school, was that their mums were basically running themselves ragged, doing everything, doing 3 jobs, because they were still completely running the house, still completely looking after the kids in every way, and then doing full-time work on top of that. And I remember my mum being quite severely judged by some of the other mums who were trying to forge ahead and have a career and do it all and be this new woman, which was what society was saying was required and expected of women now. You know, if women want women's lib, they want it all, they've got to do it all, that was the message as it seemed at the time. And, my mum was a stay-at-home mum. She wanted to be at home looking after the children. She didn't want to be working. And I remember some of the other mums being quite bitchy to her about that. And, and what if it's not wrong, whatever it is that you're choosing, whatever gender you are, what if you could just choose for you, what works for you, without even being gender specific? Just, does it work for me as the being that I be, not as the woman that I am, not as the man that I am, not as the not unspecified gender or anything like that, not as the child that I am, not as the mother that I am, not as the sister that I am, not as the brother, not as the spouse, just as the being that I be. What works for me? And I remember another thing from my childhood. I was in primary school, and no, I was in secondary school because I was almost a teenager. And I remember reading in the newspaper, and newspapers were very influential then. We didn't have the internet back in the day when we actually had physical papers that you picked up, and the headlines of the papers and the news at 10 were very important in a lot of households, and they were very important in my household. Both my parents, my dad had the Financial Times, and he would read that cover to cover. He loved his newspaper. And my mum had the Daily Mail, and she would have that every day as well. And, it was important to them what the newspapers said. And the newspapers had some credibility back in those days as well. Interesting. And I remember reading in the newspaper that there was a survey done, and it statistically showed, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that women smile too much. This was what the article said: women smile too much. And the reason they smile too much is because they're very needy, and the more they smile, the needier they are, and it means that they need attention, and they're very needy because they're women and because they're smiling. And from that ridiculous article in the newspaper as a very young teen, I remember thinking, right, I'm going to stop smiling, because I don't want to be seen as a needy woman, because it went on to say, you know, women smiled because they needed approval and they needed, you know, to be acknowledged all the time, and they needed, and it made them weak because they were women and they were weak anyway, and if they were smiling as well, then it made them extra weak. And I took that on. I took that as a rule in my life, and I stopped smiling as a teenager. And that wasn't a lot of fun, and that wasn't a great choice of mine at the time. And so what if we didn't have to buy the lies that are out there? Hi, thanks for joining me. What if we could just be who we be and do what works for us? Whether that's smiling and let go of any judgments that we or other people might have about that. What if it was okay to just do what works for us as a being, whether we are a woman, whether we're a man, whether we're a child, whether we smile too much, whether we don't smile enough? What if we could just let go of all those judgments and not buy into other people's judgments of what should and shouldn't be and what could and couldn't be, and just be what works for us? So thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Have fun being you, whether you're a man or a woman, and celebrate yourself and what works for you. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. I've been Nikki Duffy, choosingfortoday.com. Bye.